Hello, and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where we interview runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences to prove to you that anyone can run a marathon. My name is Taylor, and today's runner's path to the marathon was anything but linear. Cass grew up dealing with chronic pain, joint instability, and years of medical gaslighting before eventually being diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. For a long time, movement felt painful and frustrating, and running was something she had to keep finding her way back to through different seasons of her life. Over time, though, running became something much bigger. It became a way for Cass to process grief, trauma, and some of the hardest periods of her life while also rebuilding trust in her body. What started as short runs to cope and reconnect with herself eventually led to the start line of the Austin Marathon. In this conversation, we talked about what it looked like to train through chronic illness, the emotional weight that running helped her carry, and the full circle experience of running her first marathon through parts of the city that held some really difficult memories. It's a story of patience, grit, and showing up for yourself when no one else can. Without further ado, let's jump into the episode. Please welcome Cass. All right. Well, Cass, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited to talk to you. I know you know Heather, who was really recently on the show as well. So excited to hear your story. But before we get started, just thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I feel very honored to be here. I'm very excited.
Yay. Okay, cool. Well, we always like to start from the beginning. So how did movement start for you, and how did that kind of transition into running?
So as a child, I was a military brat, and my parents wanted me to try every little sport, but I started having issues kind of with my joint stability at a very young age. I was constantly rolling my ankle, and it was not just a normal thing. It got worse and worse. And then, I would try to do exercise and I would try to keep up with sports, but then I started having knee dislocations. So as a child, it started as a good foundation of exercise and running, of course, during sports. But unfortunately, after I had my knee dislocation, and that was around when I was 9, they were chronically happening back to back. And so I took a really big backseat to exercise and running. What I know now is that I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I didn't know that back then. And especially as a military brat, we were moving from place to place, so I never really had an established care. I didn't get diagnosed with it when I probably should have. There were a lot of signs to it, but that kind of took a back burner after I injured my knee, and then I ended up gaining a lot of weight. So my entire childhood, I was overweight. So I really didn't get into running. I felt uncomfortable in my body. I felt embarrassed to move my body at that point. So it wasn't really until I moved to Texas, and that would have been in 2008, that I was like, all right, I need to make a change. I was still having the chronic dislocations and pain, but I was like, I don't like the person I am right now. And then, so I actually went to a weight loss camp. And that is kind of where actually I started running again. Every morning we would wake up and we would do a 3-mile run. And that's how it started. Walk, run. Obviously we started and I could not run more than maybe 10 seconds at a time. But as you go and do it every day for 8 weeks is when I started. And I actually ended up really falling kind of in love with it. It helped me process all the emotions that I had gone through, and that's when I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And so when I came back from that weight loss camp, I ended up putting more weight on, and I was like, it's hard to keep up that regimen.
Sure.
So I decided to go back the next summer, and that's when they asked me to be a mentor. And I think that's when, for me, my spark happened. I was like, oh, I can help other people. And I think that's where it really I was like, okay, I want to show other people, the other campers that were overweight and obese, that you can do that. You can get to this point. So that's when I really took charge, and I started running them all. And I started making sure I could keep up with it. And for me, that was my spark. Okay, I can be a runner. This is not incapable for my body. And then after that second summer, I joined cross country because I was like, okay, I don't want to put this weight back on. And I also I really felt like a freedom when I was running. And so my senior year of high school, I did do cross country. Obviously, I wasn't super fast. I wasn't varsity, but I did talk to the coach, and he's like, well, we want everyone. We accept everyone's pace. And so I was very excited to be included in something because I had never pictured myself as someone who could be a sports person. And I got to do training with the team. And of course, like I said, I'm not like super fast, but people were I was surprised at how kind the team was to me. Because in my head, like I had been severely bullied for being overweight. So
Right.
a lot of that anxiety had come back. And at the point where I joined cross country, I was like probably a normal weight, but the people were so kind to me and like inclusive of me, even though I wasn't as fast as them. And I think that for me was like, okay, I see a running community possibly. And that was as a teenager.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of was for me like a spark in, okay, I want to help other people. And that's when I started feeling like, okay, I want other people to see that it's possible. Like your body, even if you're diagnosed with something, that doesn't mean you're limited by whatever condition. Yeah. So it's been a journey. Once I finished cross country, I went to college and I kind of went back into my being overweight thing. It came back on. So I'm not going to say like, oh yeah, I kept it off after that.
Yeah.
The first year of college was really rough and I fell out of love with movement. I didn't move my body. I was kind of overcome with depression. I had PTSD and anxiety and I crawled
Mm.
back into this horrible like hole. And I decided like I really needed to reclaim my life. So I made a huge decision to just take semester off of school. Moved back home with my parents and I started running. I started running again. And I was like, if I make a commitment just to run 3 times a week, I can do this. And I did start running again. And I think that's where I was like, all right, I can do this. And I started doing 5Ks. My grandma had passed away from cancer and they had a 5K
Mm.
for cancer
Mm.
awareness. And they were like, you get to write on your bib who it's for. And so I was like, okay, it gave me like, okay, I'm going to do this for my grandma.
Yeah.
So I did that. I did that 5K 2 years in a row. And there's something just about, it's more than just like the personal accomplishment. It meant more because I felt like I was honoring somebody. So yeah, and then I met my husband and like I went through more health challenges unfortunately. After like I did the first 2 5Ks, between that and finding my husband, like I ended up getting brain surgery. I had
Oh my
a
gosh.
yeah, it was a lot. I had Chiari malformation, so it's one of the conditions that can be associated with Ehlers-Danlos, and so that really kind of put me back and kind of made me open up my eyes to. I didn't know if I was gonna ever be able to do physically anything, like even just walking was hard. I was using a walker at school before I had the surgery because it like pulls your balance so far off that you can't even
Mm.
like, it just feels like you're always like falling over almost.
Mm.
But I really started falling in love with running again after in 2023. So I took a break again from when I got my brain surgery. That was 2015. And then 2023, that's when I started. And I was like, I'm going to start this again. And I haven't
Yeah.
stopped since. So it's like, I feel like there's not like a cohesive running plan. Like it wasn't like I just kept running. It was like there were periods in my life that, especially when we're really dark, I turned to running to kind of be like the freedom for me. Yeah.
I love that.
So
So it's been a journey for sure to get to here.
it has been a journey. Yes.
Yes. Do you mind? I would love if you would maybe I have a couple questions, so many questions,
Sure.
but I would love if maybe you educated like the audience a little bit more about like your illness and what you went through. Obviously, you said that
Sure.
kind of led to like a brain surgery or a major
Hmm.
surgery, but what were some of the things that were maybe like more consistently showing up in your day-to-day life when you were kind of walking through this journey of being diagnosed?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up thinking that pain was normal.
Mm.
I didn't realize what I was experiencing was not my normal or not any other person's normal. Um, Walking, running, any type of physical sport, I was having pain. I was rolling my ankles so much at the start that I'm actually, my nerves in my ankles are like, I can walk on the side of them because it's totally shot. And the dislocations were totally, that's what was really debilitating for me. When you have a dislocation, it hurts beyond measure. You end up falling usually, and that will pop it in, but sometimes it won't go back in. And
Yeah.
luckily, my dad was a nurse, and he would be able to help me pop it back in. But like the panic you feel and the pain of that afterwards. And not only that, but also feeling embarrassed because like a lot of times you fall and I was told, oh, it's because you're fat. Like this is why
Yeah.
it's happening. So
Yeah.
doctors ignored me. I mean, I would go to doctors and they'd be like, she's fat. Like, sorry, like that's what it is. If she loses weight, she'll be fine. And I heard that over and over again to the point where I was like, all right, I'm done trying to even get help. So Ehlers-Danlos, it also causes subluxations, which I experience every day. So even though it's not like a full dislocation, my joints will shift. And
Mm.
it's like a jolt of pain and it radiates through your body. And like I said, I didn't even, I thought this was I thought other people were feeling this. And then it wasn't until when I did lose the weight is when it was an eye opener for me. Cause I'm like, I lost this weight. Y'all
And it's
told
still
me
happening. Yeah.
exactly. That was my texting coming out a little bit. Y'all told me. I mean, that's what they said. I mean, they preached it like a choir. You will not be having this if you lose weight. And it actually got worse, a lot worse, when I lost weight. I don't know what happened, but like all of a sudden, all these symptoms of my Ehlers-Danlos and there's a lot of comorbidities that come with that. So I was having heart palpitations. My heart actually went into AFib and I had to be cardioverted back into
Oh
rhythm.
my gosh.
So
Yeah.
connective tissue basically is one of the most important things in your body. And it is a part of every body system you have, your skin, your heart functioning, like it is in everything, your eyes, like it's crazy how much it controls. And if you have defective connective tissue, it can cause so many issues. So like the heart issues, I was having POTS symptoms where I was standing up and I would pass out. I was having gastrointestinal issues where it was in so much pain, I would literally have to pull over while I was driving and I was passing out because it hurt so bad. And I had to call my mom. And you have to see all these specialists and nobody talks to anybody. Like no specialists communicate. So it's just this people who have this are just going through years of medical like gaslighting.
Yeah.
And that's how it was. It was before it was you're overweight, sorry, like lose weight. And once I lost weight, it was like, oh, you're a young woman. Like it probably is your cycle. Like the way that they gaslight you is horrible, horrible, horrendous.
Yeah.
So I was just told one thing after another that it was just minor. It wasn't until like really like after I had the heart issues and the passing out and I was having mast cell disorder. So I had like allergic reactions to nothing, stuff that I would eat all the time. I would have like a full on allergic reaction to. It wasn't until all of those pieces started coming together that I was like, okay, my dad was like, we're going to figure this out. So he pushed to get an MRI. He pushed to get a scan. And that's when they found the Chiari malformation, which we thought, okay, that's what the issue is. And even that surgeon was like, oh, once you get this brain procedure done, you'll be out of pain. And I can't tell you the devastation that I felt once I healed from my brain surgery, that I was still having physical pain all over my body. I was really and it sent me back in a really depressed way because I was like, this is it. This is the cure. But what I know now is there's no cure. You just have to keep going. And sometimes like your symptoms flare up and sometimes they don't. I ended up getting diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos in 2018. I had my son, and my son's birth was totally traumatic. Unfortunately, it was I'm always the medical person that everything that could happen happens to. But it wasn't until like I was walking with him. I was trying to get my postpartum back. I was like, I really want to get in shape, and my knee dislocated and I fell while I was holding him. And that was a huge eye opener. I was like, this is not normal. I was like, I cannot live like this anymore. So I made an appointment like that day to go see an orthopedic surgeon to follow up with the ortho team. And that's when like they told me like, this is not normal. You have Ehlers-Danlos. Like my knee was so shot that they had to use a cadaver MPFL replacement because my knee had dislocated so much that the ligament was just stretched out. And
oh my gosh, yeah.
For Ehlers-Danlos, like it's like most people, they have a rubber band and it goes back. But Ehlers-Danlos, it stretches and it doesn't go back. So every time you injure yourself, it's stretching and stretching. And that's why they were like, we can't even use your own. Like you have to have somebody else's. So would that cadaver know right now that they run 2 marathons? Probably not. I mean, posthumously, I know that's a little weird, but I always think about that. Like that person probably had no clue. And because they donated their body, like I was able to do this. So really, I'm very
Yeah,
grateful for that person.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Thank you
it's
for that.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's
honestly.
yeah. I think that this is something that I am not familiar with. So you're educating me as well. So I think yeah, it's important to kind of share the experience. And man, like the medical gaslighting is something that I've heard so many times. Absolutely crazy that this is something that people like yourself like are consistently going through. And it sounds like you had I mean, just like zooming out, being a third party in it, right? I'd be so frustrated. I'm sure you were so frustrated for so long. I guess what made you choose running as like your sense of freedom or your like, what kept you coming back to it when you were going through all of these different things and feeling so frustrated and not getting answers? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Running for me was like screaming, like,
Mm,
in a way. Like I lived in a generation where I was told, like, if you need to cry, go to your room. Like, don't do it in front of people. Like, you should not do this. So running in a way was like, there's something about just being able to run and cry and scream and do whatever you want without like being judged. Like you're just running. And I don't know if I was running away from something, like running away from that pain, running away from the abuse I had gone through, running away from all of that, or if I was running towards the person I wanted to be. So for me, it was very like a cathartic healing, to go work through all these traumatic events that I went through. For me, it was very healing. I cried so many times I ran, which is very hard to run and cry. I don't know if you've done
yeah,
it,
it is.
but you're
I've
like,
done it. Yep.
you're like, yes. You kind of have to stop yourself and you're like, okay, let's tune it back
Let's get it
before you
together.
full
Yeah.
on pass out while you're running.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, it's like it really is such a healing thing. And that's like one thing, like I've been seeing my same therapist since like 2011, and she's seen what I've gone through, and I told her like running has been one of the most healing things that I've done for myself.
Yeah.
I and being able to be a part of a community too. Like Heather and I, that's one thing we had in common. Like we both had chronic illness. We both felt like we were rejected in life. We both had like abuse. And then being able to turn that around and be like, okay, you're like me. Let's do this together. And it's almost like this bond you have. Like you both know that you're going through something. And running is just like flying. It's like flying. It's like a bird, from what I think, it's like a bird flying. Um, how free it feels. Uh, I felt like I was just trapped in that like a nest, and I was trying to flap my wings, and I never could fully like spread them
Yeah.
until now. Like I feel authentically happy with who I am, and it took a really traumatic event for that to happen to me. In 2023, I had a severe PTSD episode. And it was
Mm,
a really big eye opener for me because it made me realize that people who claim to be your family and claim to support you, that you can't rely on people like that. And there's no point on trying to please somebody, because unfortunately, there's people out there who are going to decide your narrative for you. And it doesn't matter what you do.
yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you say. You can't change their mind once they make up, some type of story about you. And I was like, you know what? Has been my entire life. I'm tired of people making my story for me. And so I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this pain and I'm going to rely on myself. And it was such a hard thing for me to mentally get past, but running, like it helped me every step of the way. When I was feeling super anxious, when I felt like I couldn't deal with what I was dealing with, I'd say, okay, I'm going to go for a little run. And it started with slow increments. I did a 5K, 10K, and then I was like, you know what? I was like, I've been through so much mentally that this physically I can do it. And like, I always told myself, like, if I can do this, I can do the next one.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I set a goal, I guess, to do a marathon in 2024. It wasn't like a full thing. I was like, okay, if I can do a half, I was like, then I'll try the full. So
Yeah.
like I didn't even sign up for the whole thing about the marathon. It kind of came to me. I didn't was like, oh, I'm going to run a marathon. I actually won an entry to the Austin Marathon. Totally
Stop.
covered.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. I wanted to do the Cap 10K, which is like in Austin, it's their big 10K event. And they have like this huge expo. Well, Austin Marathon was there. They had like scratch off cards and free entry. And I was like,
Let's go.
okay, this is the universe saying, lock in, you're doing
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I took that. I was like, all right, this is a sign. Like, why else would I have won this if I'm not going to take advantage of it? So
Yeah.
I was like, let's do it.
Very cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm somebody that never wins anything. So when something like that happens, I'm like, it's absolutely a sign. I have to
Right,
do it
exactly.
now.
I mean, it was
100%.
given to me, I felt like, and I was like, all right, I'm not going to decline. Why would I decline? Of course, you could change your mile. Like you could
Sure.
have done a 5K, but I was like, this is totally covered. And that was one of the big reasons why I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't spend this much money on myself. Like being a mom, like I always put my kids, especially financially, like first. I'm like, I need to make sure they have like, everything they want. But this was like gifted to me, I felt like, by the universe. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So
Yeah.
that was a huge like moment for me that I was like, okay, I think this is a sign.
Love it.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then timeline wise, so when you won the race, how far out was the Austin Marathon from the day that you were like, all right, I'm doing it?
Well, so the expo was in like April or end of March. So I had a whole year to decide. So I waited, like I did not sign up because like the code I was reassured would be fine. And I was like, all right, well, I want to make sure I can run a half marathon before I just show up and be like, hey, I'm going to do a full.
Yeah.
So I signed up for a half marathon like right after I finished the 10K. And I was like, okay, if I can get through this, then I'm going to do a full. I chose one of the hardest courses you could possibly choose for a half marathon and for a full. I was out of my mind. It was at McKinney Falls, and the hills literally are like that. But I made it through. I mean, it was super challenging. But I was like, all right, if I can do this, I can do it. And after I made that half marathon, which of course it was a struggle, but I made it through. I was like, all right, it's decided. I'm doing this. And I signed up right after that. So I knew I wasn't going to be the fastest, and that was totally fine for me because for me, it was a journey. It was a journey of healing. And I wanted to just show up how I felt. The thing with Ehlers-Danlos is you have good days and bad days, and I have to respect how my body feels. So it's very, like, you never know if it's going to be a flare day, if you're going to have a great day. So my goal was just to show up as my body felt on the day.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Like, I was like, okay, I can do this, and I'm not going to put these expectations on myself to be a certain time or a certain pace because I know like how unpredictable it can be.
For sure. Well, and on top of that, like how unpredictable the marathon can be, which I know we chatted about a little bit before. Now that you've ran your second marathon, which we'll get to as well. But you on top of like your illness and the unpredictability of that, like you also have the unpredictability of your training block and marathon training and the actual race itself, which I'm sure just adds this other layer. So I'm a big fan of no goals for your first marathon other than let's just get across the finish line and do this for whatever personal reason you need to do it for.
100%. Yeah. That was my goal. It was just to make sure I was in front of the cutoff time. That was it. I was like, all right. I set a personal goal for me on that first one to not stop running. And I met that goal. Love it. You know, even though like, because the hills in Austin.
I've heard about Austin. Yeah.
Yes. You know, a lot of people, most of the runners stop and they walk on the hills. And I was like, you know, I'm going to lock in. So each one come, and I was just like trying to prepare myself mentally for it. Cause you saw it up ahead and you're like, oh, here we go. Yeah. But you know, it's just like I kept trying to relate it back to my life. Like, you know, getting up the hill. And once you get to the top, you got to descent. You got to descent and you got to ride that descent. So I knew you would get over the top of it eventually.
Yeah, I love that mindset for sure.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So as you were kind of moving through training, what do you remember as being some of the high points, the low points? Like where were the runs that you felt like really proved to you that like I'm onto something, I can really do this? And then vice versa, what were some of the runs where you were feeling a little less confident?
So when I did my first marathon, I wanted to do something like a long training plan. I knew I didn't want to do something short, especially with my body. I was like, it's very important that I build up muscle slowly. So I did actually a 32-week training plan. And I have 2 kids. And also I'm a soccer coach on Saturday. And juggling life is crazy, but I was so proud of myself because I would set my alarm for like as early as 4 a.m. and I would get up and that I was like, okay, I can do this. So there's something very like, even though it's once you get up and you're fine, like getting up, it's so hard. I would love to sleep in, but I was like, okay, I made this goal. I'm not abandoning this goal. So when it's pitch black out, and I would stay in my neighborhood, obviously I have a gated neighborhood. So I would drop in, I would have my stuff. It would be 4 a.m. and I would start going. And I think that's when I really love actually running is when it's like completely pitch black and there's no one out there. I know it sounds kind of creepy, but it's also like, it's almost like you're in a dream.
Yeah.
And you can really focus on like music or Peloton classes is kind of what I used to run only to Peloton classes. And then I kind of got burnt out. So I was like, I gotta switch it up. So I started listening to audiobooks when I was running. So it just became like, okay, I started kind of falling in love with doing it early and seeing the sunrise, something about running and seeing the sunrises. I would just like kind of pause and like pause my time, pause everything and just kind of watch them. And be able to just be like, okay, I'm grateful for this day. Like being able to start your day and say, okay, I've already got my fitness goals for the day. Like it's just super meditating to wake up like that and choose to do that in the morning. And I really like the days that I would do the long miles and then show up to be a coach later on. Like it just was empowering for me. And it's something like I want my kids to see that I'm not going to let anybody determine how strong I am. Like I want them to know that every morning I wake up and you can make a choice whether to show up or not. So I want them to see that like if you make a commitment, you stick to it. Of course, injuries happen, and that did happen with my first marathon. I actually ended up getting injured in January, which was a month before the marathon. I was devastated. I started running and I got runner's knee. And I couldn't run more than just like I was like, okay, maybe I can push through it. And I was like, nope. I literally, it was so bad and I was devastated. I really thought that was it. I trained all the way from like July. It was either June or July. It was right after that half, all the way up into January. And the longest I had done at that point was like 22 miles. So I was like, I'm ready. And I got injured and I was like, it's over. My head, it's naturally inclined to think black and white. Like that's how I've been trying to get out of that way of thinking for a long time. But in that moment, I was like, it's over. I'm done. And like my husband could tell you, I was sobbing like a baby. But I was like, we're going to keep an open mind. And that's one thing why having friends like Heather, she was like, don't let this determine, just rest your knee. And I did. I took 2 weeks off. Luckily, it wasn't as close to the marathon. It was like at the start of January. And I started taping my knees when I was running, and I ended up getting healed and like being able to run. Now I don't run long distances without taping my knee, but it was
nice,
good. It was like very much a thing I feel like I needed to happen so that I could honor my body more I don't have a normal body. So I was like, okay, I need to have more support when I'm running.
Just like learning to support it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. But that was definitely one of the lows. I really thought it was over and I was like, there's no way I can do it. And then it ended up healing and I was like, okay, I guess I can do it. My body's used to being able to come back from injuries, as best as it can. And showing up that morning to run, of course, everybody's anxious. Like the night before, I feel like a race, you can't sleep at all. You're just thinking about the next day. So you end up getting crap sleep. And then the morning of, you're like, I don't know how to, like, I'm so nervous. I don't want to make my stomach upset. But it was great, honestly. Like it was freezing. But other than that, like I was so excited to be there. And I remember just talking to the people around me and I was like, oh, I'm so excited. And like hearing everybody there, you could see they were all nervous. Like some poor girl was puking and I was like, oh no, it hasn't even started.
It's always the worst to see those people. It's like, put the blinders on. I'm trying to focus on myself. Like,
exactly.
It's really tough.
Yeah. But I was so honored to be there. And like, as soon as we started, I didn't see it like as a dread thing. I was just like, I'm going to show up and just be excited and happy. And it was like a really like a downtown, it was like a tour of my own city that I hadn't been able to see before,
Yeah.
because it's usually always crowded with people, cars, you can't do anything. But I was able to actually be able to enjoy the scenery, and be in it. So that was great. I was like, this is the best way you could possibly see Austin. So
Yeah.
if anyone wants to come and visit, sign up for the marathon.
Yeah, run a marathon. It is
Exactly.
a really great way to get to know a city. I know that my
It
fiance
is.
teases me all the time about like how I'll know all the little street names in our neighborhood because I know them so well. Like I see them every day.
Exactly.
But you don't
Right.
notice the little things when you're in the car, when you can't, like you said, if it's a busier city and you can't like get everywhere and really take it in. So it is an awesome way to get to know a city
Exactly.
for sure.
And it
Yeah.
was very nostalgic for me because that one semester that I went to college, it was at UT Austin. And
Oh,
so that
cool.
was very like, that was a really hard time in my life. That was probably one of my lowest points.
Yeah.
And I got to run through that. And it was a very full circle moment for me. I was
Yeah.
like, last time I was in this part of Austin was when I was at my lowest. I was severely obese at that point, and coming to run through that, I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, look at me now. If I had known, if I was able to go back and see that girl and be like, hey, you're going to be running a marathon through here
Yeah.
during 10 years, I would have been like, you're such a liar. Like, there's no way I would have ever believed that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am so glad I didn't give up. And I'm so glad that I pushed through it. And I really didn't know if I wanted to be here anymore. That was a huge thing for me. And like, running, especially, has made me think back on that and be so grateful that I chose not to, I chose to keep going. And that's why
Yeah.
one of the reasons I have my little semicolon here.
I love it.
Because my story did not end, and that's a big thing. Is like, I chose to keep going. And I hope that other people do also, even if they think, oh, I could never be running. I hope that they can give it at least a little chance, because was in the same mindset. I was like,
Yeah.
they could never run.
Well, it's so tough. I'm kind of taking us down a little side tangent, but it's so tough. I think at the beginning of your running journey to like understand what could come from it. It's like I've said it on a couple, maybe mini episodes, and maybe not on the guest episodes, but it's like taking this bet on future you, which is a really hard thing to do because when you're current you, you don't know what your potential is, so you don't know. It's really just a blind like leap of faith that something good's going to come on the other side. And I think that's when you're in the thick of it, that's such a hard thing to really wrap your head around until you do it and you're on the other side of it. Or like you said, you're having that full circle moment where you're passing, something that where you could never imagine yourself doing, 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
So it really is just like take the leap of faith first, like take that first step. Don't worry about what the outcome is going to be because the outcome will take care of itself, but like the first step, the next step, that's really what I think matters. And you just keep taking next steps until you get to that other side.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember someone saying, like, how did you run a marathon? I'm like, honestly, I just decided to go for a run one day. That's how it started. September 1st, actually, no, the day, 2023. Like,
Yeah.
I was very much I love Peloton. I talk about Peloton all the time.
Yeah.
But that's where I fell in love with movement, is Peloton. And I grew a community that I really loved, and I fell in love with it. And it's one thing I was able to be consistent with. And then a lot of the people were like, okay, we're going to start running. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll start running. I chose like a hot day. It was like 90 degrees. I live in Texas, but I was like, okay, I put on my clothes and I'm like, we're going to go for a run. And I did I think it was a 20 or 15-minute run. It was like a small one. But afterwards I was like, I did it. I did my first run. And like everybody at the Peloton community was like, yeah, good job. Like hyping each other up. And yeah, I remember after that first one, I was like, okay, well, I did one. Let's do a second one. And I started just doing more and more. And that's kind of how I fell into it. It wasn't like, oh, I had these plans to be a marathon runner. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, let me see how this feels after going through a really bad mental period. I was like, I want to see how it kind of helps me. And it really, really was healing. And not only that, like, I got my family involved in it. Like, my son
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
running with me. My husband was like, all right, if you're running, I'm going to start running. So
Yep.
it kind of grew into like, okay, we're all going to do this together. So yeah, there's been a lot of family runs. Even my youngest, he just turned 4, but I mean, he would get out and he would try to run his best. And
Love it.
yeah, it was
So
really great.
sweet. That's
I didn't
awesome.
have that growing up. Like I didn't have exercise wasn't something my parents really did. Like it was more of like a punishment.
Sure.
So I never really saw someone moving their body for fun or feeling like feeling good about it. It was more like, okay, I am exercising because I didn't eat right. And it was always like a
Mhm.
negative connotation with it. So I really wanted to make sure that my kids see that we work out and we run and we do all these things because it makes us feel good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and running and like working out has strengthened my muscles so much that my pain has decreased drastically from when I was a non-runner. And
That's
it
amazing.
was, yeah, it really was. It's been such a big journey. It was so hard to get started to like go from not exercising to exercising, but like now, like my muscle getting stronger and stronger, I can definitely tell like a correlation that my pain has gotten less, which is amazing and more than I could ever be grateful for.
Yeah.
Yeah, the surgeon that did my MPFL, which is the ligament replacement, said, I know about this disorder. And he said, the only way you're really not going to be in pain is if you essentially get ripped. And
Gotcha.
I was like, no other doctor has told me that. They just said,
Yeah.
sorry, like it is what
So
it
it is what
is.
it
You're going to
is.
be in
Yeah.
pain forever. He
Yeah.
was like, no, you can be in less pain if you are, he said, you need your muscles to support your ligaments. And I was like, no one has told me there was an alternative.
Yeah.
And at that point, they were probably looking at, oh, there's no way she can get ripped, which I'm not ripped, but I'm like, I can at least aim for something instead of just being told there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was a huge eye opener for me. And after
Yeah.
that, I was like, all right, I'm not going to try to get ripped, but I'm going to do my best to get as muscular as I can. So
Yeah. Just be intentional. I think like yeah, like you
exactly.
said, like just setting a goal and working towards it. But it's crazy that that's the first person that was like, hey, you should strengthen that. It's just wild.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, they were just like, all right, sorry, like you'll probably need multiple surgeries. You're probably gonna be in pain. Like you're probably gonna need medicine forever. Like, sorry. Yeah, he's the only one who said, well, I mean, you can. He's like, my goal is always to have people be pain free. And he's like, with this, you just need to have really strong muscles.
Yeah.
He's like, that's pretty much the only way you're gonna be in less pain. And
Yeah.
I heard him and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And it
Yeah.
was the first time I had hope again after hearing
Yeah.
that I could take back my life. So that was kind of like, all right, I'm going to go full in. If he says it's possible, and I believed what he said. And I can
Yeah.
say like getting stronger and having more muscles has decreased in like my ligament take on of all the stuff. And knock on wood, I haven't had like this since this knee has been fixed. It's been amazing. Like I haven't had any dislocations on that side, and I've been able to actually walk and run without fear. And that's a huge change, not only
Yeah.
physically but mentally, because I can now be not afraid to move my body. So
Amazing. And you've ran
yeah.
2 marathons since then, which is like incredible. And I want to make sure we don't skip over your first
Yes.
marathon since we kind of touched
Yes.
on it a little bit. But I guess kind of talk us through like the highlights of it, right? Like the where you felt like you were the strongest. You had that full circle moment you said when you were going through UT Austin, and then would love to
Mhm.
kind of hear about the finish line as well.
So like the first half of it for sure, like it's funny because I don't know if you've ever watched the Office Race, but like there is a split. There's a definite split. And I
Yeah.
remember going like the crowd was so great. They were cheering. They had so many signs. And I was like, this is amazing. Like I had a great time the first half. And when I saw that 13.1, it kind of changed. Like when you go to the 26.2 route, like crickets. It's like,
It is. It's a
what?
huge drop off. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Kind of
was like,
jarring the first time for sure.
honestly, I went out there and then like it was so dispersed, like people were so spread out. And the first half was great. Like it really was such a like motivation to keep going. They had it's a live music capital of the world. So there's bands, they would spread them out and you could hear live music. So even if you like your ear pods died or whatever, you could still have music to run to. And a lot of people don't even run with music there because they're like, okay. But I will say there was a definite change when it broke off.
Hmm.
And that was when I was like, all right, I really have to, this is me now. I have to do this. This is locking in. I have to do this for me. So mentally, I was like, all right, I can do this. Once that spread off, I was like, all right, I got to lock in. And that's when I really was like, okay, I'm going to start kind of like going through some messages when I felt like I was getting like, not when I felt like I was getting uninspired. I would like open up my phone and start reading. Like my husband was texting me, like, you can do this. Like, I have faith in you. And he was like, oh no, I have no doubt you're not going to finish. From the start, I was like, do you think I can do it? And he's like, oh yeah. I mean, he's always been so supportive of, yes, you can do it. Anything you want, you can set your mind to, you'll do. And then also Heather was there, and like I was like, I couldn't read her messages because I started tearing up, and then I would start,
Oh,
So I was like, okay. So I would do it just in little tiny bits because I was like, I don't want to make myself like overdo it with the emotions. But
yeah.
yeah, that from that 13.1 to like mile 18-ish was like really when you're like, okay, I gotta focus on myself. And so I locked in, and I really was like, okay, we can do this. That one, you kind of like the views weren't nearly as good as the first because they put all the pretty stuff in the half. So I'm
Of
like, of
course. Yeah.
course, yeah. Now I get the buildings, but that is when I went past where I used to go, like where I used to live. It went right past that. And I think that was also like, okay, this is a sign that you can do this. Like you came from being this person, and you've made it this far. And then when we got to mile like 19 or 20, it was full on like the movie. Like I saw one girl crying, like, Mom, pick me up. And like somebody
Mm,
like, hobbling. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was very luckily at that point, like I was really well prepared. Like I brought my own water and nutrition, and I had a whole plan, and I was so on it, and I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm doing good. And I made sure, and the temperature was perfect. Like it was cold, but it wasn't like, too cold, but it was like the perfect temperature. And I think a lot of those had just a really good impact on my running. And I think mile 20 is when I really started getting teary eyed. I was like, oh my gosh, I only have a 10K left. When I saw like I have a 10K left, I was like
yeah.
starting to have the tears come, thinking about my kids, thinking about seeing them. And knowing like my husband was there with my kids waiting for me to finish. I mean, there's nothing more that could be more inspiring for me than my kids and my husband to see me finish that because they knew I'd been training for
Sure.
32 weeks. Like that's
Yeah.
half a year pretty much of training. So I was like, I can do this. And I remember just it started to seem so slow, like in your head from 20 to the finish. Cause I remember I was just like, okay, I can keep going. I can't let this get, but it did, like time seemed like it was going slower. And I was like, oh, it's just dragging on forever. But I remember crossing that last loop to the straightaway where the finish was. And this girl, I remember her saying, you're almost there. And she like was, there was only a few people left cheering, but she was like, you got it, you're almost there. And I heard her, and my heart just like started, I was like, and I started sprinting when I heard her say that. It was that last stretch. And oof, I mean, the emotions were coming in. At that point, my watch had died. I think my earpods had died, and I was just like, I'm just gonna finish. And I full sprinted it to the end. And uh, as soon as I went through, I was just like, I can't. Like, the feeling is indescribable. And then seeing my husband and my little boys there, like, I just started crying. It was just such a great moment for me. And yeah, it was like the whole journey. It really is much like life. Like when you're going through something hard, you get to that point where you feel like you just can't go on, but you're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to take one step at a time. And that's what I really focused on is I'm going to do just one little, you have to break that pie. You have to bring, you've heard the pie theory. You have to break it
Yeah.
up in little pies because like
Yeah.
you cannot take the whole thing on. So I really, and mentally that would really help me like, okay, I did this 5K, I can do the next. You do it like that. Otherwise, it will overwhelm you if you think about it as a whole part. And
Yeah.
that's very much like when you're going through something with chronic illness. Like you have to think, okay, every day is a new day. We're just going to show up how we feel that day. And it's very much relatable to the whole journey of a marathon. Um,
100%.
yeah. So crossing that line, it was everything like I could have possibly imagined and more. Like it was such an amazing accomplishment for me, and I felt so good, and I felt ready to go home. I don't know how those people like I don't know how they celebrate after. I'm like, you
Yeah,
must
right.
be,
I need a
I
nap.
mean, And Austin too, they like literally will take shots. Like they were offering
Oh,
shots
yeah,
while
I
you're
could
running.
never.
No, I did not. I don't
Yeah,
partake in that.
yeah.
Even if I was not going to run, I don't partake because I'm like, that's not, I get such bad heartburn. I'm like, I don't know how you guys can run and then drink that, but there's people who
Right,
do it.
right.
So I'm like, kudos to you, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, afterwards they had like a party and everything. And I was like, I gotta go,
See you
go lay
guys.
down
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. All in all, it sounds like it was a pretty incredible experience, and it sounds like that you were able to like lean on your community of people that were around you during the race, and like those little things that are going to pull you through the tough moments. It seems like you got a lot of that during your first marathon, which is amazing. I always love to ask, and you've ran a second marathon, so I want to make sure we touch on that too. But I always love to ask at the end of these like first marathon stories for a piece of advice. So if you're thinking about somebody, and maybe even we get really specific, like somebody who's maybe going through some sort of chronic illness, or somebody who like has doubts about themselves and their abilities, or something that's maybe holding them back, but they're thinking about running a first marathon. I guess what would some advice be for somebody like that?
My advice would be don't quit on your bad day. A lot of people, you have bad runs, and there a lot of people every runner is going to go through bad runs, and they're going to have runs where they feel amazing. And don't quit on your bad day. Like if you have a run where you're like, why am I doing this? Like I don't feel like I can run. My body's tired. It's not showing up. Like I can't meet my pace goal or whatever. Don't quit on that day. If you're gonna really consider like that you're done, make it a day that you had a good run, because your mind is lying to you, saying you can't do it. Don't listen to your mind. Your body is always going to try its best. Like your body is at the point where it's like, okay, we should stop. Your mind is the one that you have to really control. I think marathon training, yes, you're absolutely working physically, but it's very much mentally. You have to put yourself that you can do it. Because the second you say, I can't, and you start to believe that, then you're going to give up. And yeah, it's really about mind training. So I would say don't give up on your worst day. Like don't give up on a bad day, and don't let your mind trick you into something that, to believe something that's not true.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest advice is don't listen to your mind when it's trying to tell you that you can't do it.
I love that. That's great. Very cool. Well, we were chatting a little bit before about your second marathon, and we know that you obviously loved your first marathon experience enough to sign up for a second one. But there's always a lesson in like the marathon doesn't owe you anything. And I know your second experience you said was maybe a little bit less than ideal than your first marathon. So if you want to talk about some of the highlights and maybe some of the things that you learned from running your second marathon as well.
Sure. So I had a really good, like Heather and I, we did a half marathon in August, and it was so great. Like she's wonderful. She slowed her pace down for me because she's super fast. She's like a cheetah. And I'm like, I'm like the slow tortoise in the back. But she like really inspired me to go. And I was like, okay. And I had already signed up for the half in February. So I did that after I finished the full. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to put myself through that again. But I was like, you know what? Let's see how my body feels. And so I did do like a marathon training program again. And I was like, if I can get past the long runs, I'll do it. And after I got past the 20 miles, I was like, all right, I guess we're doing it. And so I did sign back up, even though I swore it off. I was like, I'm not going to do it again. My body can't do it. But I was like, you know what? We're here. Let's do it. But it was totally different from my first experience. The weather was a lot hotter than we expected. And I unfortunately did not dress for it. I had like long sleeves and a long pants, and I did not feel properly either. I did not bring water, and that was probably the biggest issue. I had one like little water bottle, and I like the half marathons, like the one I just did, like they have water stations pretty frequently together. And I was like, okay, I won't need it. Like they're going to have water stations. I didn't realize how far they were going to be like apart.
Yeah.
And then with it being hotter, you're sweating out a lot of salts. You're needing more water. And I did not prepare for that, unfortunately. So it was completely different. When I got towards the end of the marathon was when it was really brutal. Like it was starting to kick in. I had a great first half. When I got 13.1, I was like, okay, this is great. And then unfortunately from 13.1 to the end, it really went downhill. I needed salts really bad, and I'd stopped at 3 medic tents and none of them had salts. It was insane, honestly. And at that point, I called my husband, and he was there cheering for me. My mom was watching my boys this run because he wanted to be there and be able to like go actually at the course, because the first time he couldn't do that with the kids.
Yeah.
And so I saw him a couple times before, and then I called him and I was like, I need electrolytes. And at that point, like I was slurring my words. I actually blacked out at one point, and I was like, ooh, I was like, I need to call my husband. So I called him, and it was very much like a movie. He got on a little Bergie scooter, like the ones that you can rent. And luckily it had a charger station, and he was looking at my location. So he put it on the charging station, and otherwise it would have been dead. And he was riding on a scooter trying to find me. And he brought this huge bottle of water with electrolytes. I drank the bottle, and by the time I drank, I was talking normally again. It was insane. He was like, wow. And I was like, yeah, at that point, I had already
needed that.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I had already pulled over and like actually ended up vomiting a couple times, unfortunately. It wasn't a good run. And I think that was a lot because of temperatures and not preparing. And also mentally, I lost my dog, and we had just gone to the emergency room with her like 2 nights before. And I think mentally it was really hard for me. So there were a lot of factors that just weren't not in my favor. I feel like you have to show up with like a really good mindset, and it's hard when you are going through something emotional like that too. And then of course Austin's brutal. The weather in February, you would not expect to be in the 70s, 80s at that point, but it was. But yeah, he showed up. Not only that, he came, I drank that, we were great, and I was like crying at that point. I was like, can you walk with me? And he's like, yeah. So he like hooked my arms, and we were walking. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to start running. I think I can run. After I walked for like probably like half a mile, I was like, I think I can start running. And he started running with me for a little bit until I got back into the rhythm. So that was like a huge thing for me. Like it was, having a spouse that will do that for you, first of all, versus being like, all right, well, whatever. No, he came out and he delivered that to me. And he was like, you got this. You can do this. He was like, you've done it before. He's like, don't give up. You got this. And he would run ahead to the water stations and run it back to me when we were going through those, like that last little bit. And he would ask them, do you guys have salts for my wife? It was very sweet.
That's very sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after I kind of started feeling better, I was like, okay, I'm going to finish this. If not for myself, I'm going to finish it for him. And so he can know that she did it again. And yeah, he really saved my second one. I think I would have ended up passing out had he not come. So
yeah. Well, it sounds like maybe obviously there's a lot of lessons when you have a marathon like that, but it sounds like having somebody in your corner was the big theme for the second one.
Yes, get somebody, either friend, family member, that can help you if you need it. Like that you can chat, you can text and say, hey, like I need this water. Can you meet me here? And those little scooters are a great way to get around. It was like he was running up on like a right? Exactly.
I love that. That's so funny.
He felt like a knight coming in on a horse, I'm sure. And I was like, oh, at that point I was like, I love you. I was just so tired at that point. But yeah, I mean, honestly, he did. I think he saved that finish for me.
Yeah. And I love that you told this story. Like I said, we talked about it a little bit before, but like I love when people are willing to share the stories that of the races that didn't maybe not go in your favor, because I do think you just never know. You never know what's going to happen. Like you said, you never know what's going on in your life that's going to impact your race. You never know what sleep you're going to get the week of, how your stomach's going to feel, if you're going to get sick. It's like, it's never running marathons, multiple marathons. It's never going to be a linear journey. It's always going to be some sort of up and down. And I think like focusing on what result or what positive you can take from every experience to take into the next experience is really all that you can do. So what do you think? I know we said like the having some community, but what do you think was like the lesson that you're taking out of that second marathon?
I would say always prepare for the worst. I wish I would have brought water. Like I would, knowing like I would have totally, that's what I would have done differently. Like, and then also being prepared for something like that. Like I had packed salts, but apparently I had dropped them. So my vest was also my downfall. I needed like and it's funny because when I got out of the car, I was like, should I grab that fanny pack too? And I was like, no, I'm okay. No,
Yeah.
get the fanny pack. Yeah, I would say like pack the stuff that you like need for sure. Like the thing, chapstick, salts, like the basic minimums, and enough gels. That's very important. A little
Yeah.
bit of nutrition and enough water. Don't rely on the water because unfortunately the stations were not well prepared. Towards the end, they got further and further out. Like it wasn't like every mile; it was like every 6 miles,
Oh,
and that makes
that's
a
brutal.
huge difference, especially when
Huge.
it's
Yeah.
that hot. Yeah. So I would say make sure that you have at least you don't rely on the stations, even though they should be there. You never know. Like with, especially if you're a slower runner and you're in the back, you
Yeah.
deserve the same treatment as the people in the front, but you don't get it. At that point,
Yeah.
most of the volunteers are like, I'm done. I'm leaving. And then there's no one else to like give out water. Of course, there are the people who stay behind, and I'm very grateful for those. But I think like a lot of people who are slower runners or like are towards the back of the pack, they get a lot of like abandonment, almost like, okay,
Yeah.
where's my water? Where's my stuff? So yeah, I would say like, especially if you are like one of the slower runners, to make sure that you can rely on yourself in that last bit, or have somebody who's your camel.
Yeah.
If they're running
100%.
around with your water and they can meet you at that last little bit from like mile 20 to the end, that they can be there to be able, like, even if they want to be on a little bike next to you or whatever, that way they can have your water or whatever you need if your race allows for it. But still, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be my advice. Make sure that you don't rely on the stations.
Yeah. Love that. Okay, cool. Well, I want to talk about what's coming up next, but before we do that, let's wrap up with some of our fun questions here. So we're going to talk about fuel and shoes. I always give the disclaimer before we talk about either of these things that fuel and shoes are your own journey. So with
Mhm.
fuel, take everything and anything. Make sure you find something that works best for you. Same thing with shoes. Go to your local running store, get your feet measured, find out what works best for you. But for you,
Yes.
what have you like for fuel over time?
So fuel, my biggest thing is I love candy. And I always have like candy when I go on my runs.
Love it.
So that's my favorite fuel. And then also I like don't feel bad when I'm running, like when I'm eating and I'm like, okay, well, I
Little
try to
sweet
eat
treat.
pretty healthy. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, but I
Yeah.
just need the sweet treat when I'm running. So yeah, that's my favorite thing. And then also I really like the waffle, like I think the little waffle, they're like stingers, the little
Oh
small
yeah, honey
ones.
singers.
They're like
Yeah.
perfect, because it's enough carbs that it keeps you going. And so yeah, those are probably my two favorite things that I feel with. I don't really actually like the gels. Like the texture of it is really a turn
Yeah,
off for
texture's
me.
rough.
But obviously, like in the marathon, I feel like it is important to use the gels.
Sure.
But training wise, I was like, no, I'm good at those. So
Yeah.
yeah, those were my two favorite things. So just like having like a gummy candy, and then yeah, the little waffles were perfect.
Love
Yeah,
it.
those are good.
Very cool.
And
What about
water and Propel were my two favorite drinks.
cool? Love it. And then what about shoes? What have you like for shoes?
Shoes have been a hard journey for me. I did go to Fleet Feet, which is like a place where it measures your foot, and apparently I have two different size feet. That's
Oh,
pretty
fun.
common. I didn't realize
I've heard
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my foot is like a full half size bigger than the other. So I didn't know that going in, and I've been experimenting with like different shoes. I had started with Hoka. And then, of course, Heather was like, you need to try On. So my first pair of Ons I really liked. But this one I felt like also my foot's very, since it's been through so much like trauma, I have to have like kind of train my foot to get in the right spot when I'm running. So this one was a lot more like a structured shoe, which at first it caused pain because my feet were not used to being put in that, like, I guess, form. But in the long run, I think it was really good. And then like getting the inserts, I think not the one that came with the shoe, but like getting an actual insert.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those I think like made a huge difference. And then also honestly, socks are really important too. I like the toe
Agree.
socks. Like I really like my toes to be separated.
Yeah.
And also I think it helps a lot with blisters too if you do wear the toe
Yes, I've heard
socks.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had really bad blisters after this last one, and it's because I didn't wear the toe socks. But the toe socks are the best, and it doesn't bother you when you're running. Like you would think people are like, "Hey, what's in your?" No, you get used to it, and I feel like you do have like less blisters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think right now I'm still like kind of experimenting on what's my favorite shoe, but I do really like the On shoes. So that was what I used. I used her suggestion of like I think it was the Cloud Surfer Max, and yeah, I always there's something new, just like that feeling when you get a new pair of shoes. You're
Yeah,
like, ooh, I get to have a run with a new pair of shoes. It's like Christmas
it
for
is. It's
runners.
very
Yeah,
exciting. Yeah.
yeah, and I love that
Love
you
it.
can have different colors and everything. So that's always a way you can incorporate your personality too with
For sure. Love it. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about what's coming up next. So I know you have a couple things on the calendar. What are you plotting for this year for races?
it. So we were doing my husband and I. He did the Cap 10K with me last year, and the first year I did it myself. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it with you." So we're gonna do Cap 10K together. That's really a great it's a great way to be closer to each other too, because
Yeah.
there's something about exercising together, like you're just going through it with your partner. So we're going to do that. That's in April. It's really great. Like it's kind of like a tiny mini marathon. Like it takes you through the pretty spots of Austin as well, and it's in springtime, so everything's in bloom and it's really
Yeah.
pretty. There is a massive amount of people though, so I was going to stick to the very, very edge because I'm like, I get a little overwhelmed if there's too many people.
Sure.
But it draws people from all over the world. Like we have people that come from different states, different countries to do it. Yes. And then we actually do participate in the activities after because 10K doesn't exhaust you like a full marathon.
Yeah.
We're tired still, but they have so many like vendors that set it up and give you food. They have a place for your kids. It's just like such a great environment. So we're really excited to do that. And then we did, I signed up for the half marathon again, the Austin one, but not going to do the full one. I'm pretty sure on this one because my husband would like to do it with me. I plan on trying to like run with him the entire time, kind of get him into it. He's in the mindset. He's like, okay, I'm going to do it. And so I'm really proud of him and I'm excited. And so that's kind of be more of, he's been here cheering me on this entire time. So it's time that I return that. So I am going to be his cheerleader and I will be the one, like, I'm going to be running it with him, but I'm going to make sure, like, if he needs help, like, I'm going to be carrying all the things if I need to. So yeah, we're doing that. And then from April to February, I'm trying to find something in between, maybe another half marathon or not, something like that. I'm looking around at what's going on. Unfortunately, Texas having a run in the summer is not ideal.
Yeah.
I did do my half marathon was in June, but honestly, it's kind of good for conditioning when you think about it. But yes,
heat acclimation. Yeah.
it's hard. It is very hard, but yeah. So I'm trying to find something in between there, whether we have to go to different, I mean, I don't know if we're going to go out of Austin or like out of Texas, but like trying to find one that's not extremely hot, not in July, maybe May.
Yeah.
Maybe it will be cooler. Can't say for sure. But yeah, I'm really excited.
No, you've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. I'm excited to see you kind of knock these out and excited for your husband for getting into running. I think sometimes we don't realize like the impact we have on the people around us until they come to us and they're like, hey, I'd love to do that with you. So it's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
If anybody else wants to kind of follow along with your journey, where can they find you?
I am on Instagram. That's probably my best platform, or not best, but I guess the one I'm mostly on is, my username is Sass Nachos because in Peloton I'm Sassy Nachos. So I've used that on everything. Of course, Sassy Nachos was taken. So I'm Sass Nachos on Instagram and then Sassy Nachos on TikTok. I think I have one there. I posted some of my running. I used to post a lot of my running stuff, but then I kind of fell back because, life is like this and sometimes you can't post all the time. But those are the two places probably I'm the most active.
Amazing. Well, cool. Well, I'll make sure to link all that in the show notes as well. But thank you again for coming on and thank you again for like sharing your story and being very vulnerable about it. I think that anytime somebody comes on and is, very authentic about their story and can kind of like paint the picture of truly what it was like to go through in a unique experience that they went through, it helps more people than we think. So I appreciate you coming on and telling your story.
Thank you so much. And yeah, if anyone is going through like a chronic illness and wants to reach out to me, I'm always open ears. Like I think that anything is possible and not to give up hope. That would be my major thing. Like just keep going. There's people out there that can be your support system.
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Taylor.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the My First Marathon podcast. For more stories, tips, and resources, head to myfirstmarathonpodcast.com. And if you want access to bonus episodes, exclusive resources, and extra support for your training, make sure you check out the community at myfirstmarathonpodcast.com/exclusives. You can also follow along with us on socials, Instagram and TikTok. That's at My First Marathon Pod. If you want to follow along with my personal journey, that's at tay.says. Whether you're training, recovering, or just thinking about signing up, you belong here. I'm so excited that you're here, and we'll see you on the next one.